Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this CQI and IRCA webinar, IRCA certification and how to achieve it. While we wait for a few additional attendees, I will go through some housekeeping items with you. You will see on your screen that you have a GoToWebinar toolbar, and there are a number of icons present there. The one that I'd like to point out to you is the questions module. So as we go through the session and at the end where there'll be time allocated for question and answers, you can use the questions module to type your questions in, and I will try and get through as many of them as I possibly can. It's worth taking a few moments just to familiarize yourself with the questions section of the GoToWebinar toolbar. Okay, so let's begin. Thank you very much for giving up some of your day to find out a little bit more about how becoming an IRCA certificated auditor can enhance your career. So the title of today's session is IRCA certification and how to achieve it. Today's presenter is me. My name is Graham Kench. I'm the new member manager here at the CQI and IRCA. My team are here to help you become IRCA certificated auditors. So here's what we'll cover during this short presentation this afternoon. We'll go through why you would join IRCA. We'll talk a little bit about the training requirements. We'll look at the audit experience needed. We'll briefly run through the application form. We'll talk about some of the key sections of the application form, and I'll just run through some common mistakes and the solutions to those common mistakes to help you have the best possible chance of making a successful application. And then at the end there'll be time for Q&A. You can ask questions as we go. If there's anything that's not clear or you'd like clarification on a particular topic, then please feel free to type your question in using the questions module on the bottom right hand corner of the GoToWebinar toolbar. So why join IRCA? Well, essentially, employers recognize IRCA certificated auditors, not IRCA trained auditors. And the way we describe IRCA is that it offers the key to global recognition in management systems auditing. IRCA is worldwide, so it's recognized by employers around the world, giving you flexibility and access to new contracts. Once a member, you're placed on our online auditor register, which is searched by employers to find auditors. You'll also receive an IRCA card, giving you increased earning power through visibility to employers. So what training do you need to have completed to become an IRCA certificated auditor? I'm going to run a quick poll now, so if you get ready to answer a question that I will pose. The question should appear on your screen now, which is, have you completed an IRCA certificated auditor, lead auditor training course? If you could vote now, we will have a look at the results as soon as everybody has voted. Looks like everybody's voted now, which is great, so I will share the results. And the good news is that the vast majority of you have completed an IRCA certificated auditor, lead auditor training course, which is great news because that is the minimum requirement for becoming an IRCA certificated auditor. If you haven't yet completed that course, then your next step is to use our Find a Course facility on the quality.org website to locate a suitable training provider where you can take that training course. So training is very much the first step. It's necessary to proceed with IRCA certification. For those of you who haven't yet completed your IRCA certificated training, it's still worth participating in today's webinar, as in the future you will be applying for certification, and so it will be worthwhile knowing the information early on. Thank you very much, everybody, for participating in that poll. We will move on to the next section. which is experience. So how much experience is required to become certificated with IRCA? So no auditing experience is required to join IRCA. You can join as a provisional auditor without any prior auditing experience, based solely on the completion of your IRCA certificated training course. So most people do start at provisional auditor grade. It's the most common route to certification with IRCA, and it's certainly the fastest and the most straightforward. So a lot of people complete their training and then move straight into provisional auditor certification with IRCA. No auditing experience is required. So let's have a look at the IRCA application form itself. You'll notice that there's a section on the bottom right-hand corner of the GoToWebinar toolbar called Handouts, and if you drop that down, you'll notice that there is one handout in there, and I've placed the IRCA application form in there for your download. So I'd recommend that you save that file, download it somewhere to your desktop or to your computer somewhere, and when we finish today's session you can have a go at completing it. You can save the file. It's an interactive PDF. You can save it, you can start filling it out, save your progress and come back to it later. So the application form itself looks like this. And as I say, you can, if for some reason you can't download it from the handout section of this webinar, you can always download it from our website, www.quality.org. You would then click on Become a Member and then Join IRCA. So here's what the application form for certification looks like. There are two fees. There's an application fee, which depends on your country of residence, and that is payable with your application. Only the application fee is due with your application. We will ask for your first certification fee later if you are successful in being awarded a grade. So the first page of the application form, we just ask for some simple personal details, the usual contact address, business address, and which address you prefer to be your correspondence address. We also ask for some information so that we can set up your certification record. Part 2 on the second page asks you to tell us which schemes and grades you are applying for. So you will notice across the top of that table are all of the schemes that we offer certification against. For example, Quality 9001, Environmental 14001. You can apply for as many different schemes as you wish. A lot of auditors obtain certification for quality, environmental and occupational health and safety at the same time to give them flexibility to audit multiple standards during audits. You can apply for multiple schemes, however you can only have one grade at a time within any one scheme. So for example, you can be a provisional auditor for environmental and a lead auditor for quality. It's worth noting at this point that the application fee applies per scheme. So if you were applying for both quality certification and environmental certification, you would pay 2 application fees, one for each scheme. When you send your application form through, we will request application payment by email a few days after we receive your application. The next page is about your scheme awareness. So this is your chance to demonstrate to us your understanding of the sector that you're operating in and what the key drivers are within that sector. So there are 2 sample boxes here We ask you to specify which scheme you are writing about, for example, Quality 9001 or Environmental 14001, and then there's half a page or so for you to complete what we call a scheme awareness, which is, as I say, a few bullet points are usually sufficient on your understanding of the key drivers within that arena. It's important that this is filled in sufficiently. One of the common mistakes, which we'll come on to later, is that this section is often neglected, and we sometimes have to come back to applicants to ask them to complete this further, add more information to this section. So it's worth putting in as much detail as you can. Bullet format is absolutely fine. So here's an example of a really well completed scheme awareness section. So this individual has written about the quality sector relating to ISO 9001. He's mentioned the core elements of the quality sector in bullet point fashion. He then goes on to outline the core examples with relevant work-related examples demonstrating how the quality management system governs the type of work that he does. So it does not need to be long, it just needs to be concise and complete. On the next page you have an application checklist where we ask you to simply confirm that you've completed your full home and business address, you've specified which certification scheme you're looking to apply for, you've included a copy of your auditor training certificate stating successful completion. It's worth noting that we cannot accept certificates of attendance. You've also included your CV or resume demonstrating that you meet the work experience requirements. You've included evidence of your academic qualifications, sufficiently detailed scheme awareness, and that you've signed and dated the declaration and the sponsor sections. It's worth noting that you do require a signature from a sponsor on your application form. That can be anybody that has known you in a work capacity for at least 2 years. They do not need to be an IRCA certificated auditor themselves. We'll talk about audit logs now. So it's worth noting that an audit log is not required if you are applying for provisional auditor grade. If you're applying for provisional auditor grade, you do not need to attach an audit log. You can simply submit your application form together with your training certificate and your CV for assessment. However, if you're applying for auditor grade and above, we will need evidence of recently conducted audits by you. And the way to do that is to supply us with the IRCA audit log along with your application. The IRCA audit log looks like this, and we simply ask you to specify an audit number, the start date and the finish date of the audits that you're including, the total duration in days, the total duration in terms of the number of days spent on site, the contact details of the company audited or the auditee, your role in the audit, whether you were sole auditor or lead auditor, and the total number of individuals in the audit team, including yourself. We also ask you in column 7 to specify which audit standard you're auditing against, for example ISO 9001. We can accept audits that were conducted against multiple standards, for example ISO 9001 and ISO 14001. We will simply prorate the total duration of the audit according to the proportion of time spent on each standard. So for example, if you audited against 2 standards over 2 days, we would take that as 1 day per standard. We also ask for contact details of the company that employed you to carry out the audit and a declaration of competence from somebody that can testify that you've carried out the audit successfully and competently But we only need that signature on one of the audits. A minimum of one of the audits must be countersigned. So I alluded earlier to some common mistakes. I'll briefly run through what the key ones are that we see from time to time and that we would advise people to try and avoid if possible. First one is no application payment. We can't assess an application unless we receive your application payment. You will receive reminders on email to pay your application fee. However, we are unable to proceed with an application without having received payment for the application fee. Quite commonly, we find that there's no IRCA certified training course certificates included with the application. It does have to be an IRCA certified lead auditor training course to qualify. Sometimes, as I mentioned earlier, scheme awareness is incomplete or missing at Part 6, so it's worth making sure that you've completed the scheme awareness. Often there's no signed declaration at Part 7. That's really important. It can be an electronic signature. It doesn't need to be a paper signature. And equally, sometimes there is no sponsor details or signature under the sponsor section. So it's worth making sure your form is completely signed before submitting to us. So that really concludes my brief presentation this afternoon. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope that's given you some insights into what it takes to complete a successful IRCA application. I'm remaining on standby for any questions that you have. It looks like we've got some questions coming through already. One of which is, who can sign on the sponsor at Part 9? So just to clarify, anybody that has known you in a work capacity for a minimum of 2 years can sign the sponsor section at Part 9. It does not need to be an IRCA certificated auditor. So just to reiterate, anyone that has known you for at least 2 years in a work-related capacity. Some of the other questions we frequently receive are to do with application fees. What is the application fee? Well, it very much depends on where in the world you are based. We do have fees that are adjusted according to local economies. So if you are in a developing country, you'll find that your fees are lower than somebody who is in a developed economy. And we do base the application fee on your country of residence, that is where you would like your IRCA card to be posted to, should you be offered certification. So it's based on where you live. Another good question which has come through about application fees, which is, is the application fee required annually? No, it's not. It's a one-off fee that you pay once only when you initially become certificated against that scheme. So if you're not currently an IRCA certificated auditor and you wish to become one, you will pay an application fee per scheme. If you are already an IRCA certificated auditor and you wish to add an additional scheme to your repertoire, you can do that, and you will pay one application fee per scheme at the point that you become certificated against that scheme. Another great question which has come in, which is, would internal audits be acceptable for the audit log? We can accept first-party audits as long as there is sufficient evidence of a degree of separation between you and the area of the business being audited. In other words, as long as you're not auditing your own section of the business, and you can demonstrate that through provision of an example audit report and an organizational chart showing that you're not part of that part of the business that is being audited, then in all likelihood we would be able to accept those audits. So the key to that is, yes, we can, but we would need supplementary evidence in terms of an organizational chart and a sample audit report. It's worth mentioning that the annual fee that you pay for your certification will be requested at the point that you're offered a grade of certification. So if you were to submit an application form, we would assess that. We would review your documents, assess the application, and hopefully, if all is in order, send you an email with your offer. You will at that point be asked to pay your first annual fee, and once you've paid that, you will be added to the IRCA register. Another great question that's come through. Essentially, it's can we accept surveillance audits as evidence of audit experience? Unfortunately, we can't accept any form of surveillance audits on the IRCA audit log. We also cannot accept multiple audits carried out on the same part of the business within a 12-month period. Another great question which has come through, which is how long is the certification process once you receive required documentation? That's a really great question. It all depends on how complete your application is. If your application is fully complete and you've made sure that you've attached all of the required documents, there's nothing missing, and you meet the requirements for the grade, then there's no reason why you cannot be offered a grade of certification within 3 weeks of submitting your application form. Sometimes there are little bits and pieces that are missing, and we would then obviously come back to you to advise a certain section needs to be reworked, or we would need more evidence of your training, for example. We will give you the opportunity to make those amendments prior to making our final offer. We would, however, ask you to confirm before we send your application for final review with our external assessment team that you have read and agreed to all of the requirements for the grade that you're applying for, that you understand that the information that you have submitted at that point cannot be added to, and that the decision of the awarding officer is final and there is no appeals process against the grade being awarded. It's worth mentioning at this point as well that we do, as an organisation, we are part of the CQI. IRCA and the CQI together represent the totality of the quality and auditing professions, and we do have an offer on at the moment whereby if you join IRCA and become certificated, and you then wish to also become a member of the Chartered Quality Institute, you can do that very straightforwardly. We have a fast-track process for that. Being an IRCA auditor means that you gain automatic entry to our practitioner grade of CQI membership, which means that you can use the letters PCQI after your name, and we will, if you choose to do that and take up CQI membership as well as IRCA membership at the same time, we will waive the application fee for the practitioner grade of CQI membership, saving you £45. Any questions on that, just email us on applications@quality.org and one of the team will send you further information. Another great question regarding regrading or upgrading to a higher grade of membership. When applying as a provisional auditor, is there a specific time limit to upgrading your membership? Absolutely not. No, you can upgrade or regrade your membership at any time that you, as soon as you meet the requirements, you can apply to regrade your membership. There are many provisional auditors that join us as provisional auditor immediately upon successfully completing their IRCA certified training course, who will be with us for 2 or 3 years as a provisional auditor before they decide to regrade to a higher grade of membership. There is no time limit on regrading your membership. It can be done at any time as soon as you meet the requirements. Another great question has come through, which is what are the requirements for maintaining the grade of IRCA certification? So in terms of minimum number of audits or CPD. Really great question. So the rule is every 5 years you will be required to recertify. So from the point that you become an IRCA certified auditor, you have 5 years before you are required to demonstrate to us again that you are keeping your knowledge and skills up to date. So every 5 years you'll be asked to submit recertification documents which demonstrate that you've completed adequate CPD in order to keep your knowledge and skills up to date. That does not necessarily mean that you need to conduct further training. However, if there has been a major change in the standard that you have certification against, for example, a new version has been released, then you will be required to demonstrate that you've transitioned successfully to that new standard by undertaking suitable training. However, if there's been no change in the standard, then you will not be required to do that. If there are any questions that come to mind once the webinar has finished, don't worry, we remain on hand to answer them. Just drop us an email to applications@quality.org and one of the team will get back to you with an answer to your specific question. So it's coming up to 3:30, so thank you very much for your time and attention today. Very much enjoyed talking to you, and we look forward to going over your applications in the very near future. The next steps are to download the application form, as I said earlier, which is available as a handout. You can then complete that at your leisure and email your application form to applications@quality.org. What will happen then is you will receive an email within a day or two requesting your application fee, and you'll be provided a login to our secure online website with your own user ID and password. You can then log into our secure online website at quality.org anytime that you find convenient, and you can then make payment by credit or debit card online. Once we receive your application payment, we'll be notified and we'll then start working on reviewing your application. And then, as I say, as long as all the documentation is present, within 2 or 3 weeks, you should receive feedback and/or an offer letter for certification. So it's a relatively straightforward process, but the first step is always to send us your application form. So we look forward to receiving those in the next few days. So thank you very much for your time and attention. Have a great day, and we will talk to you in the near future.